Namami buddham gunasagarantam Santa sada hontu sukhi avera Khayo jiguncho sakalo dugando Gachanti sabbe maranang ahanche Samanta cakkavalesu atra gacchantu devatam Saddammang munirajassa sunantu sagga mokkadam Dhammasavana kalo ayam badantam Dhammasavana kalo ayam badantam Dhammasavana kalo ayam badantam Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa Anicca sankhara uppadavaya dhammino uppajjentva nirujjanti te sangvopasamo sukho All conditions are impermanent. Their nature is to arise and cease. Having arisen, they cease. They are still in true bliss. Homage to the exalted one, the worthy one, the perfectly enlightened one. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Dear friends in the Dhamma, today our Tuesday class, I would like to explain here one of the main teachings in Buddhism, which is Anicca or impermanence. That is a very, very important topic in Buddhism. Our spiritual path, especially deliverance path, starts with the understanding of impermanence. That is the main topic in Buddhism, or this is the unique in Buddhism. This is the heart of Buddhism. And if we can understand impermanence in Buddhism, actually we are so fortunate. We can start our spiritual journey as much as we can. That is why always we discuss this topic. I think before I start this topic, I would like to explain some primary things, primary teachings in Buddhism. It is very important to understand for all of you. Actually, frequently I explain it to for your remembering. That is very important. When we discuss Buddhism, we should know the skeleton of Buddhism, the process of Buddhism, the summary of Buddhism. That is very important. Then we can understand where we are in. Sometimes we discuss a lot of topics in Buddhism, but we don't know where are in according to Buddhism. That is very important. When we practice something in the name of Buddhism, we should have a clear understanding where we are. What is the stage that we are in? That is very important. Then we can go forward day by day in our spiritual journey. That is very important. As I mentioned before, all Buddhist doctrines can be included into 3 stages. One stage is that the doctrine that we should practice to succeed in this present life. I think, Pranandu, you can remember. What are the qualities, what are the things that we should fulfill to succeed this life? Yes, very important. There are 4 things that we have to fulfill to succeed this life. They are education, Education, employment, very good. Employment and yes, health. Health also very important. Health and morality or discipline in our speech and behavior. Morality, moral life. These four things are very important. Whether we wish our next life or not, it doesn't matter. But everyone likes to succeed this present life. There are a lot of people in the world, actually they respect these four things. That is why they always try to develop their GPA, grade point average. And also they always want to increase their credit. And also they always consider about their physical health. And also they have a good discipline in their speech and behavior, because they know very well, even though they were born alone, even though they will die alone, they have to live in the society with many people. As a social being, we should succeed our social life. That is why it is very important to consider about our morality, moral life. Okay? These four things, there are a lot of teachings that we can see in Buddhism, how we succeed in these four areas. One of the duties of parents that they should fulfill for their children is giving a good education. Sippan Sikkapenti. In Singhala Sutta, Buddha explains, one of your duties is to your children is giving a good education. Not only subjective knowledge, but you should give them language abilities. That is very important. Not only verbal languages, but we should be qualified even sign language too. That is very important. That is why a lot of people, especially in the Western society, they learn ASL. What is ASL? American Sign Language. That is also very important. However, employment means we should earn something righteously, honestly, as much as we can. That is also very important. And health, not only physical health, but we should think our mental health. That is very important. Even though we are healthy physically, if we are unhealthy mentally, if our mind is polluted always with craving, lust and anger, actually our physical health also is useless. That is why we should consider, we should think our mental health. And also morality, it means discipline in our speech and behavior. Buddha says, when you speak something, when you do something, think it again and again, whether it is correct or not. That is very important. And these four things are very important when we are going to succeed in this immediate life. And not only that, Buddha says, how we succeed our next life. How we receive a blissful life when we die, after we die. For that, Buddha says, the importance of the knowledge of karmic law. Here, it is very important to know the nature of karmic law. You know, not only Buddhists, but a lot of people in the world believe karmic law. Not only present society, but even before Buddha appeared in the world, a lot of Asian people, they believe karmic law. And what is the nature of the karmic law? Whatever we do with intention, we will have same results. If we do something with impure mind, physically, verbally or mentally, we will have bad results because of polluted mind. On the other side, if we do something with pure mind, physically, verbally or mentally, we will have fruitful results. because of purification of our mind. If we have this understanding, we always try to overcome negative thoughts and always we generate positive thoughts as much as we can. When we do something, we always keep our mind pure and calm. Because if our mind is polluted, actually bad results come to us. They don't go to other side. And we always purify our mind, because our happiness depends on purification of our mind. And here, with the understanding of the karmic law, what do? We do 3 meritorious deeds. What they are? Yes, very good. Dana, Sila and Bhavana. Generosity, morality or virtue, and meditation, bhavana. These 3 things focus on reducing 3 unwholesome mental states. By practicing generosity, we trained our mind to reduce craving or attachment. By practicing morality or loving kindness, we try to overcome anger. By practicing meditation, we develop mindfulness and we focus on reducing ignorance or delusion. This is the purpose of practicing these things. Actually, some people think that we should do merits to have a blissful life hereafter, but the results, the benefits throughout practicing these 3 things are here. The results are visible, immediately effective. When we are always generous, our heart is so calm and quiet. If our mind is so pure and calm with loving kindness, we always see all over the world like our family. We have no struggles with other people if our mind is always kind and generous. And also when we are mindful, by practicing meditation, we always contemplate on our mind, the nature of our mind. We take care of our mind. But people always take care of outside things and persons, but they don't care about their mind. By practicing meditation, we trained our mind to purify, and also we try to take care of our mind. Always we keep our mind like a pure, good smell flower. Why do we do it? Our mind is the main reason that decides our happiness. If we can purify our mind from negative thoughts, it means we have no suffering, even though we have some problems outside. Even though sometimes we are sick physically, actually mentally we are healthy, if our mind is pure and calm. As the result of good deeds, generosity, morality and meditation, actually we can see some results in this life. What are the results of doing these 3 things? Good health, good complexion, longevity, and we can increase our employment too by practicing these 3 things. And also especially we have a very special benefit by practicing these 3 things. What is that? We meet good friends. We will receive good association, noble association. We meet good people who explain us the deliverance path. That is the highest benefit that a person can receive in this life. If someone has a good friend who explains the spiritual path, he or she is very fortunate. If someone hasn't this quality, this benefit, actually everything he or she earned is useless. That is very important. by practicing these three things, we can receive a lot of benefits in this life. This is the second step that Buddha says in the name of happiness. And what is the third level? What is the third stage that Buddha explained in his teachings? How we succeed our spiritual life, or how we reduce our unwholesome mental states completely. Mokkha Magga, or deliverance path, the way to liberation. What is the liberation? What is the freedom that Buddha explained? Yes, free from, especially free from delusion. And our success, or free from suffering, depends on free from delusion or ignorance. And for that, Buddha says, first of all, we should have a knowledge, special knowledge. What is the special knowledge that we receive before we start our spiritual journey or deliverance path? Yes, very important, very good, the dependent origination. Patisampada, or co-origination, or causality. Patisampada, cause and effect. And how suffering arises. Before we start this spiritual journey, we should know clearly how suffering arises. Whenever we are unhappy, whenever we have suffering, it means we don't live in the present moment. We live in the past or future. And also we don't know that we are living in the past. And this is the very important thing. Actually, our past has ceased, our future haven't come yet. We have the present moment. That present thought also arises and ceases at the moment. That also doesn't belong to us. It happens with the conditions. And with this knowledge, we start our spiritual journey with three things. What they are? Yes, virtue or sila, concentration, and or samadhi, and wisdom, panya. Sila, samadhi, panya. Virtue, concentration, and wisdom is the path of liberation. This is the summary of Buddhism. And the way how to succeed this life, the way how to succeed next life, and the path that leads to get rid of suffering. This is the summary of Buddhism. And also now we are going to explain Anicca. Before we start this topic, it is very important to understand, Buddha says, 5 doors, 5 entrances of liberation. There are 5 places. There are 5 places that we can achieve liberation. Where are they? Yes. One of them is listening to Dhamma. Listening to Dhamma. While you are listening to Dhamma, you can liberate from negative thoughts. And also preaching Dhamma, also one of the doors. And contemplating on Dhamma, manasikara, or reflecting on Dhamma. And chanting also one of the doors of liberation. And meditation. These are the 5 doors, 5 entrances of liberation. Listening to Dhamma, preaching Dhamma, reflecting Dhamma, chanting Dhamma, and meditation. Now you are listening to Dhamma. Here I am preaching Dhamma. This is the place for both of us to liberate. And the special quality that here it should be, when we listening to Dhamma, that Dhamma should consist with 4 noble truths. That is very important. Sometimes, even though we listening to something in the name of Buddha's message, we have no chance to listening to what Buddha taught in Four Noble Truths. Especially we should understand truth, what Buddha explained. And one day Buddha says, I explain only two things in the world, in the past and future, in the present. What they are. Buddha says, I explain only two things in the world. Suffering and the cessation of suffering. And again Buddha says that two things can be divided into four. Suffering, the cause of suffering, the cessation of suffering, the path that leads to cessation from suffering. And here it is very important to understand suffering. What is suffering? What is suffering? Ordinary people think that sickness is suffering, decay is suffering, aging is suffering, death is suffering, separation from good friends is suffering. These are the things that ordinary people think as suffering. Actually, it is true as suffering, but Buddha says not just as suffering. Buddha explained the noble truth of suffering. Suffering and the noble truth of suffering are different. Suffering can be realized by anyone, but when we are going to understand the noble truth of suffering, compulsory, we have to listen to what Buddha taught. You know, in Buddha's time, who was the most intelligent person except Buddha? Reverend Sariputta was the most intelligent person in that time. Even Sariputta couldn't realize by himself this truth without listening to Buddha's message from Bhante Asaji. And what is the noble truth of suffering that Buddha realized, that Buddha delivered, that Buddha proclaimed to the world?
Associating with things outside and things that were here before.
Yes, very good. When we experience something through our senses, through our eye, through our nose, through our tongue, through our ear, through our body, through our mind, if we experience something, if we think there is something outside, there are some people outside, that is the suffering. Aging, death, sickness, all things happens with this misunderstanding. It doesn't mean that there are nothing outside. There is something outside, but only four fundamental elements, such as earth element, water elements, fire elements, wind elements. These four things can be seen outside. Only these things are outside, but when we experience these things in the outside world, we think that there is a person, there is a chair, there is my son, there is my dad, there is my father, there is a table. We name something when we experience something, but this external world appears according to our present mental conditions. According to our present mental conditions, we make our senses, internal senses, eye, ear, nose, like that, tongue, body and mind. We always get some experience. This is a wall. We can see through the wall, and we can go through the wall. In this moment, according to our present spiritual world. But you know, when our spheres, when our mental condition changes, then we can go through this world. We can see through the world. Now, you can see this water. When your spheres change, when your mental conditions change, suddenly your spheres change, then sometimes you can see this water. Even though water is here, when your internal senses spheres change, you are unable to see this water. But ordinary people, even scientists, they think if someone can see this water, everyone can see the same water. It is true, but only in the conventional truth. When we go to the higher level, in the supramundane level, actually it is not true. This world is appeared according to our present mental conditions. Now you can see only 3 or 4 persons here. But when your senses change, then you can see a lot of beings around here. Your departed relatives, deities, some gods, you can see a lot of beings around this hall. Sometimes there is no any space to come anyone. Because a lot of beings around here, even though we can see at the moment, when our senses change, we can see a lot of things in the world. And here, understanding of suffering, that we create the world. When we see someone, we think that is my son, that is my brother. But the same person, when a tiger sees that same person, he sees that this is a good things for my diet, for my dinner. And he is one of my friends or brothers, but he is a food to a tiger. And this present world appears according to our present mental conditions. When this present mental conditions changes, suddenly our spheres change, then the world also changes. If we can understand this reality, our mind is not fixed in outside persons and things. As soon as we experience something, we suddenly look at inside. But ordinary people, as soon as they experience something in the outside world, they appreciate or blamed for the outside world. Because they think suffering or happiness come from outside. But we create happiness or suffering according to our present mental conditions. And this is the deep concept in Buddhism. However, we should have some kind of understanding about suffering. And also the cause of suffering. The second one is the noble truth of the cause of suffering. Sometimes the ordinary people, they think that the cause of suffering is outside. When there is a very beautiful person, this is the cause of suffering. If you meet a person who is suffering, you think that this is the person who creates suffering to me. But the cause of suffering is not outside. The cause of suffering is inside. We like ourselves. We want to protect ourselves. Then, if we like something, we have an attachment. If we dislike something, then we have detachment. Cause is here. That is why Buddha says, Nate kama yani chitrani loke. Beautiful things are not lustful in outside. There are no lustful or beautiful or ugly things in the world. We create something as ugly, beautiful or lustful. according to our present mental conditions. That is why sometimes, you have seen sometimes your friends get married some very ugly people. Sometimes you ask, why did you get married with this person? He is so ugly. Then he may say that, no, it is ugly for you, but he is very beautiful for me. And this is the thing. Okay? Happiness, suffering, or beauty is not outside. It is inside. We create those things according to ourselves. If myself likes something, I like it. If myself says that this is not good, then I dislike it, I hate it. But reason is here. Therefore, the second one, the cause of suffering is the attachment to ourself. When we can remove the attachment of ourself, then automatically we have put off the switch of main switch of our ignorance. And the cessation of suffering. The cessation of suffering means reducing the attachment to ourself. And the path of liberation that leads to get rid of suffering. The path, with this understanding, we have a path that Sila, Samadhi, Panya, or Eightfold Path. And everywhere, if we are listening to something as Buddha's message, it should be consistent with these four things. When we are listening to some sermon, if it doesn't consist with these four things, it means that is not the Buddha's message. That is his own message. And always we should realize these four things throughout the Buddha's message. That is very important. And here we are going to discuss Anicca. Anicca is a very, very important topic in Buddhism. Very essential doctrine that we should realize on the path of liberation. Anicca or impermanence. What is your understanding about Anicca? What is the meaning of Anicca? Yes, what is the meaning of impermanent?
Changes.
Yes, what is your understanding? What do you think?
Impermanent. Thing arises and ceases.
Yes.
At the moment. According to the application.
Yes. How about Mr. Pranandu?
Things that they didn't occur in the past that come to occur in the present. Things in the present, they go forward to the future. Meaning it's impermanent, so change past to future, or past to present, and present to future.
Yes, here it is very important to understand there are similar words, very close related words we should understand. Anicca and Viparinama in Pali. Viparinama. Anicca means impermanent in Buddhism. Viparinama means changing. You know, what's the difference of these two words? You know, everyone can understand changing. Now, one day this building is subject to decay. Someday we are going to old age. Now it is hot, after 1 hour it is so cold. Your children are very little now, one day they are going to young age, and one day they are going to old age, one day they will die. This is actually, it is not impermanence. It is changing. Even scientists, dividing atom, they have discovered changing. Everything is subject to change. Everything is subject to decay. It is not difficult to understand. Everyone can understand who has good education. But impermanence, anicca, that comes in Buddhism is different. What is the impermanence that Buddhism explained? That especially we should understand our world. Our entire world is our internal 6 senses and external 6 objects. We have 6 senses spheres like eye, ear, nose, tongue, body and mind. And outside objects, forms, sounds, smell and tasting, touching and mental formation. The nature of these 12 things is impermanent. What is impermanent? I is impermanent. What is the meaning of I is impermanent? The ordinary people think that this eye one day going to blind and they know only physical eye. But physical eye is not the sense that Buddhism says. I means in Buddhism the ability to see something. This physical eye helps to see something, but that eye cannot be seen. And when we see something, our eyes arises at the moment. When we hear something, the sound arises at the moment. Like this sound, our all spheres experience like in this way. In these 12 things, be sure it is very important to remember. In our spiritual world, in our experiential world, there are nothing which is ready-made. Everything we create at the moment according to our present mental conditions, like according to our ignorance, karmic law, intention, there are several reasons inside. According to our present mental conditions, we create something at the moment. The experience that we have at the moment is created at the moment according to our present mental condition. And I is alive when forms are here, when our consciousness are here, when lights are here. There are several conditions at the same time. If any condition is not appeared here, we have no this experience. Even though there are a lot of forms here, if we close our eyes, we can't experience. Even though there are a lot of sounds, the vehicles are going here and there. If your intention is not there, you can't hear them. Even though you have wore some clothes, if you don't think it, at the moment you have no clothes. When you remember, when you think, I have my shirt, then you have clothes. Until you think, you have no clothes. At one time, we have only one experience through one sphere, one sense. Then other 5 senses are dead. And the other thing is, when you hear something, this sound arises because of my effort of my fingers. And this sound I listen in because of my consciousness, my ear, my intention. When all things are together, I can hear this sound. But this sound doesn't belong to these fingers. This sound arises because of these reasons, but the sound doesn't belong to any reason. That is the interesting thing. When your children are singing, when they do a very good speech, the speech arises because of your children, but the sound doesn't belong to your children. But your ignorance doesn't believe it. Your ignorance says that, my children did a good speech. They sing very nicely. It is true only in the conventional truth. The attachment arises because of this ignorance. We always bind this experience to external things and persons. Experience always arises external things and persons, but that experience doesn't belong to anything in outside or inside. With the conditions, this experience arises. When conditions separate, immediately at the moment the experience ceases. This is the nature of impermanence. Actually, this is a very deep concept or teaching in Buddhism. Understanding of impermanence or anicca depends on completely understanding of dependent origination. Until we understand, we realize dependent origination, actually we are unable to realize anicca in Buddhism. Understanding of changing is not difficult to understand. This sound, someone can understand, my mind changes. My fingers one day is going to decay. It is very easy to understand. That is changing. My fingers change, my consciousness changes, and my ear is subject to decay someday. It can be realized by anyone. But impermanence or anicca in Buddhism means that the sound, this sound arises at the moment with the conditions. When we look at something, several conditions are together. As the result of these conditions, suddenly we see something, suddenly it ceases. When you see your children, you may think that they were here before you saw them. It is true according to conventional truth. Actually, your children appear when you think them, when you see them, when you listen them from them something. And whenever you experience through your six senses, at the moment that experience arises. When you have no attention, at the moment you have no those things and persons in your world. When you think something at the moment, your entire life is that thing. For example, when you think your vehicle on the street, your entire life is your vehicle at the moment. When you remember your boys, at the moment your entire life is your children. When you think your mom, at the moment your entire life is your mom. At a moment we have only one experience. If we can succeed this present moment, actually our entire life is successful. All Buddhist doctrines focus on how we succeed this present moment. For that, we have to practice two things in the world. They are mindfulness and mindful meditation. Mindful meditation. Mindfulness means keeping our attention in the present moment, the awareness of our body and mind. Because always our mind in the past or future. We trained our mind to live in the present moment. Awareness of our body and mind. Not only living in the present moment, mindful meditation means we reflect on impermanence. Every moment my present thought arises and ceases. Arises and ceases. Now I think my children, it arises and ceases. Now I think my mom, it arises and ceases. Now I think my job, it arises and ceases. Now I think my clothes, that experience arises and ceases. If we can keep our attention in this reality always, then our entire life is successful in our spiritual life. It means at the moment we have no suffering. We know only the impermanence of our experience. And here, if someone can realize anicca, he is ready to realize dukkha, suffering or unsatisfactoriness. Suffering or unsatisfactoriness arises because of this anicca, unknowing of anicca. Because people think that everything is permanent. Even though they don't think something, they think that other things are in their world. But actually we have nothing except we think in the present moment. And also, anicca, dukkha and anatta, selflessness, we have no anything that we can get as self. We have nothing which can be controlled inside or outside. That means anatta. Anatta means selflessness. If we have a self, we should have a control. When our body is going to sickness, when it is going to decay, when it is subject to death, we can control it. It means selflessness. If we can realize these three things, it means we always see these three things. Then we have no struggle. We have an ability to live with these three realities. We have no debate. We have no struggle. We have to only understand these three things. When we see this anicca or impermanence, we don't think it should be permanent. Because we have realized this reality always. And also if we think it is subject to change or suffering, then we can go away from suffering. While other people are suffering with these things, we are away from suffering, reflecting on this reality. When other people think that there is something that they can get as self, we know very well nothing is self. Everything is selflessness. Then we accept these realities. Then seeing these realities, we are away from suffering. This liberation, deliverance in this life. The difference in Buddhism is that Buddhist deliverance path results can be received in this life. Other religions say their liberation after they die. But the difference, the significance of Buddhism is that we can realize this truth in this life. After we realize this reality, further we can live without suffering. And for that, Buddha says, especially, we have to listen in this message again and again. The nature of our life. Always we should contemplate on impermanence. My eye is impermanent, forms are impermanent, nose is impermanent, Smell is impermanent. Like that, again and again, we contemplate on impermanence. Then we reduce the power of ignorance. We always defeat ignorance or delusion. Ignorance or delusion. This is the main cause of suffering. This is the main reason of craving and anger. We should use our entire effort to defeat delusion, reflecting on impermanence again and again. We should reduce the strength of delusion. How we reduce the strength of delusion? We should reflect on impermanence again and again. Finally, we have to reflect on only thing that my mind and mental formations are impermanent at the moment. They arise and cease at the moment. And for that, contemplating on impermanence is the highest contemplation that Buddhism says. But suddenly, we can't do it. That is why, first of all, we should concentrate our mind in wholesome mental objects, such as practicing loving kindness, breathing meditation. These are the techniques that we can use to overcome our anger and craving. When we practice concentration meditation techniques, we can calm down our mind. Especially, we trained our mind to live in the present moment. That is why we practice concentration meditation such as breathing meditation, loving kindness meditation, contemplating on Buddha's qualities, contemplating on the qualities of the Dhamma. These are the meditation techniques that we can use in our day-to-day life to calm our mind, calm down our mind. And actually, if we can practice concentration meditation, we can see the beauty of our life. Because we always depend on outside persons and things. We always wait until someone calls us. We always look at outside. We always look in that until other people appreciate us. Because we have no inner peace. If we want to create an inner peace, we have to practice meditation. Then we don't need appreciations from outside. Because we make a refuge inside. Buddha always encourage us to make a refuge inside. That is why Buddha says, Attadipa bhikkhave viharatāta saranā anya sarana. Dwell with yourself as an island, as a light with no other refuge. Dhammadipa bhikkhave viharata dhamma sarana nānya sarana. Dwell with the Dhamma as an island, as a refuge, as a light with no other refuge. Even though you have children, one day they will get married with someone. You are alone. Actually, not only after they will get married, but now also, always you are alone. If you can add mindfulness to your mind, then you have a refuge. You are not alone. You live with the good friend, the best friend. We should develop mindfulness like our best friend. Then always we have satisfactoriness. We are satisfied. Because always we make refuge, we make happiness inside. Everything is subject to decay or death. Even though we have close relatives and friends, someday they will die before we die. Someday they are subject to sickness. Sometimes they face some, dangerous illnesses such as cancer, heart attack. Those are the illnesses that any time they can come to their life. In this situation, if we can create a real refuge in our life, actually then We don't find a refuge from outside world. We have always a refuge. We depend on our mind, we depend on our intelligence, wisdom always. And we can spend with a satisfied life. That is the purpose of practicing Buddha's message. Here, it is very important to understand our life. Our life actually completely depends on our success. We always like to succeed. Our success. How do we succeed our life? What is the sign that we are successful in our life? Our success depends on our happiness. If we are unhappy, actually we are not successful. Our happiness depends on, this is the Buddha's message, okay? This is the spiritual path, this is not the purpose of ordinary people. And our happiness depends on how far we have reduced craving and anger. Craving and anger. If we have craving and anger, actually we have no real happiness. We are unhappy because our mind is polluted with these negative thoughts, unwholesome mental state. For reducing craving and anger depends on reducing delusion or ignorance. What is the delusion? What delusion means? Delusion means that when we experience something, there is something outside. Outside things bring me happiness or suffering. And also, other sign of ignorance is that when we experience something through our senses, we think that experience was here before I experienced. When you see me, you may think that I see this Bhante before I saw. This is one of the signs in ignorance. And reducing delusion or ignorance depends on practicing mindfulness and mindful meditation. If we can keep our attention in the present moment, reflecting on impermanence, then gradually we can reduce ignorance or delusion. Reducing delusion depends on practicing mindfulness and mindful meditation. Practicing mindfulness and mindful meditation depends on understanding of the dependent origination or Four Noble Truth. Understanding Four Noble Truth depends on association, good friends. This is the white one. Sometimes it is not a living person, sometimes it may be a website, sometimes it may be a book or CD. Now in the current society the technology is very rich. We can receive good friendship through many ways, various ways. And associating good friends depends on three qualities in your life. What they are? You also should have some qualities when you receive good friendship. They are honesty, gently spoken, and intelligent. You should be honest, gently spoken, and intelligent or wise. Honesty, good attention, and intelligence or wisdom is are qualities that we have. What is the honesty? Honesty means whatever you do in the name of your spiritual life, spiritual development, then you should think, when I do these things, whether my craving, conceit, self-view increase or decrease. When you do something in the name of your spiritual life, you should think whether my trishna, drushti, mana, my craving, conceit and self increase or decrease. That is the honesty. You know, there are some people who practice generosity, virtue, they do those things in other purposes. They are not honest. Sometimes they increase their self-view while they are practicing some merits. That means it is not honest. Here it is very important, those qualities, honesty, and good attention and intelligence. When you have good attention, now all of you are gently spoken, you are ready to listen to something. It doesn't mean that you should follow everything that you are listening. You should be intelligent, whether it is good or bad for my spiritual life. That is means intelligence, good attention and honesty. When you have these qualities, you can find good friends anywhere in the world, because the technology is very rich now. If you are interested in spiritual life, then you are very sensitive. You can find spiritual friends in various ways. And when you meet a spiritual person, you are hurried to listen to what he says. But ordinary people always try to say something what they know. They are not ready to listen from others. But as spiritual persons, we always try to listen to others' ideas. That is very important. And we should be wise, whether it is good or bad. And also, especially in this path, the most important thing is understanding of impermanence, anicca. Understanding of anicca depends on the dependent origination. Not being occurred comes to occurrence. Being occurred will not go to occurrence. Ahuspa sambhutang hutva na bhavisyati. Our entire life is 6 internal senses and 6 external objects. This entire world is impermanent. Impermanent means all of them arise at the moment. Our previous mind, previous experience influences the present thought. But present thought didn't come to the present as it was previously. My previous mental situation influenced my present thought, but it arises at the moment in the new way. The present thought influences next thought, but present thought doesn't go to future in the same way. And these 6 internal spheres and 6 external objects arise at the moment. If we can understand this reality always, we increase the duration of contemplating on this reality. Our success completely depends on our happiness. Our happiness completely depends on reducing ignorance. Reducing ignorance completely depends on practicing mindfulness and mindful meditation and keeping our attention in the present moment always we should try to reflect on impermanence, which happens every moment. When we have lesser time, we have to practice concentration meditation for our spiritual world. Actually, if we can develop our concentration meditation such as loving kindness meditation, then we can see the beauty of our life. Please try to increase the duration that you practice, like breathing meditation, loving kindness meditation. Then not only as a sitting meditation, but you can practice everywhere. When you drive, when you walk as an exercise, then you can think, may all beings be well, happy and peaceful. In another way, you can think Buddha's qualities, Arahang, Samma Sambuddho, Vijjacharana Sampanno. By contemplating on the qualities of the Buddha, you can walk. Then everywhere you have subjects to meditate. And when you eat something, you can contemplate on the nature of food. And when you wash your face and your body in the morning, you can contemplate on your body parts as impermanent. Then everywhere you can make a meditation room. Everywhere where you walk, it is a place where you practice walking meditation. It means you give the priority to your spiritual development while you are doing your day-to-day life activities. It doesn't mean that you don't give the priority to your other things. Actually, you do everything as you did everything previously. While you are taking care of your children, doing your jobs, actually you give the priority to your spiritual development. That is the highest priority in your life. Purifying your mind from negative thoughts, from craving, anger and delusion. We always dream that how I purify our mind. Then you don't give any chance to any defilement to your mind. Because these are the real enemies in your life. Craving, anger and delusion are the real enemies. There are no enemies in outside. Buddha says it is very easy to defeat hundreds of enemies in the battlefield. It is not difficult. The highest victory is defeating your inside enemies, craving, anger and delusion. That is the highest victory in your life. If you are able to not to give any chance to these three things in your mind, it means you are successful. It means you are happy. It means your mind is so pure and calm. And day by day, increase the duration of practicing samatha and vipassana. Buddha says, as an intelligent person, the highest things that we should practice is concentration and insight meditation, samatha and vipassana. Samatha and vipassana is the highest qualities that an intelligent person should practice. And it means the duration of our concentration, such as practicing loving kindness. May all beings be well, happy and peaceful. May all beings be well, happy and peaceful. We increase the duration of concentration meditation, keeping our attention in the present moment. Not only we are living in the present moment, we contemplate on impermanence. We always think the impermanence of our present thought. The present thought didn't come to the present from the past. The present thought will not go to future from the present. It arises and ceases at the moment. Then every moment we reduce the power of ignorance. It means we reduce the strength of suffering. It means day by day we reach the liberation, freedom. It means day by day we increase our real happiness. We are achieving the highest goal, happiness, the bliss of Nibbana in our life. Have you any question? Buddha says here that there are some special stanzas here. Sabbe sankhara anicchati yada panyaya passati ata nibbindati dukkhe esamaggo visuddhya. All conditioned things are impermanent. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. This is the path to liberation. Not only impermanence, but Buddha says we have to reflect on unsatisfactoriness. Sabbe sankhara dukkhati yada panyaya passati ata nibbindati dukkhe esamaggo visuddhya. All conditioned things are unsatisfactory. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. This is the path to purification or liberation. Again Buddha says, Sabbe dhamma anattati yada panyaya passati ata nibbindati dukkhe samaggo visuddhya. All things are not self. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. This is the path to purification or liberation. This is the summary what we talked here. You can understand this message when you read again, and also especially Buddha emphasized the importance of practicing wisdom. Practicing wisdom or developing wisdom means contemplating on impermanence. As much as we can increase the duration of contemplating on impermanence, it means we develop the duration of wisdom. Buddha always encourage us to increase our wisdom, because wisdom is the most valuable gem of men. And wisdom purifies one's mind. And wisdom shines our character. And wisdom helps us to purify our mind. Practicing wisdom is the way how to live happily. This is the highest quality or teaching that Buddha says if someone needs to achieve real happiness. Our happiness depends on how far we have overcome suffering. Our getting rid of suffering depends on how far we have reduced craving, anger and delusion. Okay, here it is very important to realize and understand the meaning of impermanence and reflect on it in our day-to-day life. Okay, is there any question?
I have a question.
Yes.
So let's say when you have cravings for sweets, how do you use this to overcome that kind of craving?
Yes, craving, there are several words in craving in Buddhism. Lobha, tanha, raga, there are a lot of same words such as lust, craving, attachment, greed. Okay? There are several techniques, in primary techniques that Buddhism says. The highest technique is contemplating on impermanence. But there are primary techniques, such as, if you are so greedy, then offering something to others, practicing generosity is one of the techniques. Okay? There are some very greedy people. For them, Buddha has explained to practice generosity. At least they can offer something to their own parents. That is also very important. Suddenly they can't offer something to other people. That is why at home, someone can practice generosity. And practicing generosity is one of the techniques to overcome craving. The other thing is attachment or lust. There, there are some techniques like contemplating on impurity of our body parts. Sometimes lust disturbs our peace of mind. When we see some beautiful persons, sometimes our mind is lustful. Then, by contemplating on impurity of our body parts, when those body parts are together, our mind is lustful. When we can separate those things, then gradually we can overcome attachment and lust. Okay? We separate mentally these hair, skin, hair, teeth, smell, blood. Again and again we divide mentally. Then gradually we can overcome lust. And sometimes Buddha says in Vitakka Sutta, when we think something, when we hear something, when we see something, if our mind is polluted with anger or craving, then we should not think it again and again. For example, when you think something, your craving increases, you should limit it to think. And it doesn't mean that you should forget it. Buddhism never says us to forget anything, but we should reduce the duration of thinking it. For example, when you think someone, your mind is angry, you should not think it. Then you can change your mind to another way. When you think your land or your house, your mind is so craving, then you should not think it. Then you can think your children, you can think your job, you can think your parents' qualities, you can contemplate on meditation, then you can change your mind into another way. Those are the techniques. And from practicing generosity and contemplating on impurity of our body parts and not to thinking, those are the techniques. Finally, when we think our present thought as impermanent, then we don't find anything outside. Even though we think there are outside things and persons, actually everything is in our mind. Even though you think your children are outside, actually those children's memory is your mind. You have only the present thought. Then, if you are clever to recognize and realize the impermanence of your present thought, then you don't find anything or any person outside. Your craving and anger ceases inside. It means your mind is wise, intelligent. Suddenly you catch here as impermanent. Then you don't find anything outside. Everything is mental conditions. Everything is mind, mental thought. That is the final practice. But some people can't enter the final solution suddenly. That is why Buddha has explained the primary technique, such as practicing generosity, offering something to others, donation, charity. Those are the primary qualities. And also, when you see something always, if your mind is polluted with some negative thought, then you should not look at it again and again. When you listen something, if your anger arises, increases, you should not think, you should not listen in it again and again. Those are the techniques. Okay? Okay, is there any question? Okay, thank you for your good attention. Today we'll discuss a lot of things in Buddhism, especially today our topic was Anicca or impermanence. And when we understand impermanence, we understand suffering and selflessness too. These three things are interrelated. And day by day, we should go forward on this path. Actually, this is the only path for the real happiness. Our real happiness depends on our purification of our mind. And actually we are so fortunate, we can understand the real path, how we achieve the real happiness. Even though we earn money, even though we have a lot of children and friends, actually they can bring us happiness. This is the only path how we achieve the real happiness. Okay? Not only listening to this message, but you should reflect on it again and again. While you are going back home, you can reflect on it again and again, what we discussed in the classroom. And not only that, if you can spend at least 10 minutes per day in your sitting meditation, while you meditate, you can think it again and again. Then you can develop the duration of your practice meditation. That is also very important. That is why Buddha says in 3 ways we should practice: listening, reflecting, and meditating. These 3 things are very important. Not only listening, but reflecting and meditating. These 3 things are very important. Okay, for that I wish you all the best. By the power of all these meritorious activities that we practice here, by worshipping Buddha, by meditating and by listening to Dhamma, you acquired a lot of spiritual energy. By the power of all this spiritual energy, may our departed relatives also receive this spiritual energy. May they enhance their spiritual energy. Finally, they also attain final bliss of liberation. With that intention, let's transfer these merits to our departed relatives. Recite in the Gatha. Idam me ñātīnam hotu sukhitā hontu ñātayo. Idam me ñātīnam hotu sukhitā hontu ñātayo. Idam me ñātīnam hotu sukhitā hontu ñātayo. By the power of all these meritorious activities, may guardian deities and angels also rejoice with these merits, and may they enhance their spiritual energy. May they also attain final bliss of liberation. May they keep their eye on you too. With that intention, let's transfer these merits to guardian deities and angels too. Ākāsattā ca bummattā devā nāgā mahiddhikā puññantaṃ anumoditvā chiraṃ rakkhantu sāsanam. Ākāsattā ca bummattā devā nāgā mahiddhikā puññantaṃ anumoditvā chiraṃ rakkhantu desanam. Ākāsattā ca bummattā devā nāgā mahiddhikā puññantaṃ anumoditvā chiraṃ rakkhantu tvaṃ sadā. By the power of all these meritorious activities, may you all righteous wishes meet with success. May you be well, happy and peaceful. Finally, may all of us attain final bliss of liberation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Dukkham pantā ca niddukkha. Bhayam pantā ca nibbhaya. Sokam pantā ca nissokā. Hontu sambe pipanino. May all beings be well, happy and peaceful.